They don't want you to know this truth. For centuries, the most powerful institutions on our planet have systematically hidden what could be the single most important revelation about human existence: the harvesting of human emotional energy, what insiders call Loosh, by interdimensional entities known as Archons. This is not science fiction. This is not mythology. This is the hidden architecture of our reality that explains why suffering persists despite all our technological advancements. The true reason behind the engineered chaos of our world has been deliberately concealed, because once you understand the farm, you can no longer be farmed. The veil is lifting now, and those who have controlled this system for millennia are desperate to maintain their energetic food supply. What I'm about to share with you has been hidden in plain sight, encoded in ancient texts, whispered in esoteric circles, and systematically ridiculed by mainstream institutions. The time has come for this knowledge to be spoken clearly, directly, and without fear. Your intuition has always sensed something was fundamentally wrong with our reality. That persistent feeling that something doesn't add up about human suffering isn't paranoia. It's your inner knowing detecting the edges of the prison farm. The evidence has been suppressed at the highest levels. When government remote viewing programs accidentally stumbled upon this truth in the 1970s, entire research departments were shut down overnight. Documents were classified. Scientists were silenced. Why? Because they had discovered the ultimate forbidden knowledge, that humanity exists within an energetic prison system designed to generate and harvest our emotional energy. The Archons, these non-physical parasitic entities, have constructed an elaborate system to farm human consciousness without our awareness or consent. Their primary food source? The rich emotional energy we produce. Especially when in states of fear, anger, anxiety, and despair. The Monroe Institute, founded by Robert Monroe, documented these findings before external pressures forced them to redirect their research. Monroe himself coined the term Loosh in his writings, describing it as a type of energy produced by humans and animals, particularly during moments of fear and pain. His remote viewing protocols accidentally pierced the veil, revealing the horrifying truth that human suffering isn't random. It's being cultivated and harvested by non-physical entities. This revelation was so profound, so threatening to the established order, that it triggered immediate containment protocols from those who serve as the human proxies for the archonic system. The truth was buried under layers of disinformation, but fragments remained, preserved by those who understood the importance of this knowledge for human liberation. Think about it. Have you ever wondered why negative emotions feel so much more intense and consuming than positive ones? Why fear and anxiety seem to persist no matter how much you try to overcome them? This is by design. Your emotional system has been hijacked. The Archons have engineered our reality to maximize emotional output, creating a perfect Loosh factory where humans continuously generate the specific frequency of energy they require for sustenance. This invisible prison, this matrix of control, operates through every aspect of society, keeping humanity trapped in patterns of suffering while concealing the true nature of our infinite consciousness. Consider the persistence of war throughout human history. Despite our intellectual understanding of its futility, despite countless peace movements and diplomatic efforts, conflict continues to erupt across our planet. This isn't a failure of human intelligence or compassion. It's a successful harvest of the richest Loosh available. Mass fear, grief, rage, and hopelessness create energetic feasts for the Archons. Natural disasters happen, yes, but notice how human systems consistently fail to mitigate suffering in their aftermath. Notice how media amplifies the emotional impact through constant repetition of the most traumatic images. This isn't incompetence, it's by design. Every tear shed, every moment of terror experienced, every surge of helpless rage generates the precise emotional frequency the Archons require for their sustenance. What exactly is Loosh? Ancient texts described it thousands of years ago, though they used different terminology. Loosh is the energetic radiation produced by conscious beings experiencing intense emotions. It's the raw energy of consciousness itself, transmuted through emotional experience into a harvestable resource. The Archons, as non-physical entities, require this energy for their very existence. Think of it as a form of psychic vampirism operating across dimensional boundaries. The stronger the emotion, the more potent the energy. This explains why our world seems designed to maximize conflict, division, and suffering. These conditions create the richest harvest for our unseen overlords. The ancient Egyptians understood this energy as Ka. The Hindus called it prana. The Chinese named it Qi or Qi, and modern science is beginning to measure it through studies of the electromagnetic fields generated by the human heart and brain. Different emotions produce different frequencies in these fields, and negative emotions generate the strongest, most coherent signals, perfect for harvesting. This emotional energy radiates from your body, extending several feet beyond your physical form, where it becomes accessible to interdimensional harvesting technologies. The most intense emotions, fear of death, sexual shame, violent rage, profound grief, produce powerful bursts of energy that the Archonic system prizes most highly. This is why our world seems engineered to continuously trigger these specific emotional states through media, economic insecurity, religious programming, and social conflict. I'm revealing this now because the control system is beginning to fracture. For the first time in human history, we have the opportunity to break free. Where are you watching this from? I'm curious to know how far this message is spreading, as knowledge is the first step toward liberation. Share your location in the comments below and join the growing community of awakened souls who are reclaiming their sovereignty. The Archonic system depends on isolation, making each awakening individual feel alone in their realizations. By connecting with others who are seeing through the illusion, you strengthen your resistance to the harvesting mechanisms and help create safe zones where consciousness can expand beyond their control. The fracturing of their system isn't happening by accident. Cosmic cycles are shifting. The Earth's vibrational frequency is rising. Information that was once successfully suppressed is now flowing freely despite desperate attempts at censorship. You finding this message isn't coincidence. It's part of a greater awakening that the Archons have feared since they established their harvesting operation on Earth thousands of years ago. The evidence for this harvesting system can be found across human history, hidden in plain sight. The ancient Gnostic texts discovered at Nag Hammadi explicitly warned about the Archons and the false reality they created. These manuscripts, dating back nearly 2,000 years, described our world as a counterfeit creation designed by the Demiurge, the false god who fashioned this material prison to ensnare divine consciousness. The Gnostics weren't alone. Buddhist traditions speak of hungry ghosts that feed on human suffering. Indigenous shamanic traditions worldwide describe energetic parasites attached to human consciousness. Hindu texts detail asuras who feed on negative emotions. The Tibetan Book of the Dead warns about entities who intercept souls between incarnations. These aren't cultural coincidences. They are different perspectives on the same hidden truth. The consistency of these warnings across disparate cultures and times reveals a universal human awareness of the predatory interdimensional system. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, we find references to the sons of darkness who manipulate humanity. Native American traditions speak of Wetiko, a mind virus that feeds on fear and division. African shamanic traditions identify spirits that harvest human emotion. The Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime stories warn of entities who steal life essence. This cross-cultural consensus points to a shared human experience of the Archonic system, preserved in spiritual and mystical traditions despite systematic efforts to eradicate this knowledge. These traditions also preserve techniques for resisting the harvest, meditation practices, plant medicines, sound technologies, and specific awareness states that make human consciousness indigestible to the Archons. When you understand the Archonic system, everything about our dysfunctional world suddenly makes sense. Why does pain feel so much more intense than pleasure? Why does fear spread so much faster than love? Why do we forget our past lives and divine nature? Because the entire system is optimized for maximum energy production and minimal awakening. The Archons don't just harvest our energy, they've designed a sophisticated recycling system, what some traditions call the reincarnation trap or the soul net, ensuring that souls remain in the harvesting cycle lifetime after lifetime, forgetting their true nature with each incarnation. The human body, with its narrow sensory range and vulnerability to pain, is the perfect instrument for Loosh production. Notice how physical pain demands immediate attention, overriding all other thoughts and priorities, while pleasure remains subtle and easily forgotten. This isn't evolutionary happenstance, it's intelligent design for maximum harvest. The amnesia we experience between lives serves the system perfectly, preventing us from recognizing the repeating patterns or remembering our agreements. The false light that souls are drawn to after death, described in so many spiritual traditions, isn't a path to heaven but a sophisticated recycling mechanism. Souls are shown selective life reviews, offered false choices, and manipulated through guilt and cosmic responsibility into accepting another term on the farm, another opportunity to generate the emotional energy the Archons require. If you're resonating with this information, make sure to like this video and subscribe. This message is being systematically suppressed across platforms, and your engagement helps break through the algorithmic barriers designed to keep this knowledge hidden. Together, we can ensure this truth reaches those who are ready to awaken. The censorship of this information isn't speculative, it's demonstrable through the systematic demonetization, shadow banning, and account restrictions that happen whenever this knowledge begins to spread too widely. The algorithms that control your information environment aren't neutral tools, but sophisticated extensions of the Archonic control system, designed to keep your attention trapped in emotional triggering while suppressing information that might lead to liberation. Your simple act of engaging with this content creates ripples in that system, opening pathways for others to discover this knowledge. This is how we begin to dismantle the farm, not through violent revolution or external saviors, but through the simple, unstoppable power of awakening consciousness spreading from person to person despite all attempts to contain it. The control structure extends far beyond the non-physical realm. There exists a hierarchy of control, with the demiurge at the top, followed by various ranks of archons who oversee different aspects of the harvesting operation. Below them are what esoteric traditions call egregores, thought forms created and empowered by collective human belief that serve as intermediary control systems. These include religious dogmas, political ideologies, and cultural programming that divide humanity and generate conflict. At the lowest level are what some traditions call demons or attachments, specialized energy parasites that attach to individuals, stimulating addiction, depression, and self-destruction to maximize Loosh production. This hierarchical system functions as a sophisticated farming operation, with each level managing different aspects of the harvest. The demiurge, as described in Gnostic texts, isn't the true creator, but a lesser entity that fashioned the material world as a flawed copy of the genuine spiritual reality. This false god lacks the ability to create consciousness itself, and so must harvest it, designing an entire cosmic system to capture, contain, and farm the divine sparks, our true selves, that emanate from the genuine source. The Archons serve as the primary engineers and managers of this system, fashioning both the physical and metaphysical architecture of the farm. They operate beyond our conventional perception, in what some traditions call the lower astral planes, or what quantum physics might describe as adjacent dimensional frequencies. The egregores, powerful thought forms created and sustained by human belief, serve as the perfect middlemen, appearing to be human creations while actually functioning as sophisticated control mechanisms. Religions that emphasize guilt, shame, and eternal punishment, political systems that foster division and conflict, economic models that generate perpetual scarcity amidst abundance, all are egregoric structures that both harvest Loosh directly and condition humans to produce more. In our modern world, this ancient system has been technologically amplified. Social media algorithms are designed to trigger emotional reactions. News cycles promote fear and outrage. Entertainment normalizes violence and trauma. The economy manufactures scarcity and competition. Healthcare suppresses natural healing. Education conditions obedience rather than awakening. Politics creates artificial division. All of these systems work together in perfect harmony to generate maximum Loosh while keeping humanity too distracted, too exhausted, and too divided to recognize the farm they inhabit. The digital revolution hasn't liberated humanity. It has perfected the harvesting system, creating unprecedented opportunities for emotional triggering, social isolation, and mental fragmentation. Smartphones keep us perpetually accessible to triggering. Algorithms track our emotional vulnerabilities with unprecedented precision, and artificial intelligence systems are being developed to perfect the harvesting process. Notice how social media makes you feel after extended use. The subtle anxiety, the comparative inadequacy, the political outrage, the fear of missing out. These aren't unfortunate side effects, they're the primary design goals of platforms engineered to generate harvestable emotional energy while collecting data that allows the system to perfect its triggering mechanisms. The constant dopamine loops, the intentional frustration mechanics, the carefully crafted social comparison dynamics, all are sophisticated harvesting technologies disguised as entertainment and connection. Look at how our institutions function, not as they claim to, but as they actually operate. Religion promises salvation while instilling guilt and shame. Governments promise protection while creating enemies and threats. Economic systems promise prosperity while ensuring perpetual scarcity for the majority. Media promises information while delivering programming. These aren't failures of well-meaning systems, they are successes of perfectly designed harvesting mechanisms. The Archons have engineered a perfect farm, where the livestock not only produce the maximum yield, but actually maintain their own prison, defending it against anyone who points out its true nature. Consider how religions simultaneously offer comfort while embedding deep guilt about natural human behaviors, particularly sexuality. This isn't moral guidance, it's emotional farming. Sexual energy is one of the most powerful forces in human experience, capable of leading to profound states of consciousness when fully embraced. By surrounding this energy with shame, guilt, and fear, religions convert what could be liberating into a perpetual source of harvestable negative emotions. Government systems follow the same pattern, offering protection while continuously manufacturing external and internal threats that keep the population in fear. The war on drugs, the war on terror, the endless succession of enemies and crises all serve to maintain a baseline of anxiety and tribal division that produces rich Loosh harvests. Economic systems that could easily provide abundance for all instead maintain artificial scarcity, converting the human birthright of comfortable subsistence into a desperate competition that generates endless stress, anxiety, and despair. Have you noticed how your most painful emotions seem to repeat in predictable patterns? How certain triggers reliably produce the same reactions throughout your life? These aren't random psychological quirks. They're carefully installed programs designed to ensure consistent energy production. Your trauma isn't just an unfortunate event. It's a harvesting mechanism. Your anxiety isn't just a mental health issue, it's a feeding tube. Your addictions aren't just chemical dependencies, they're Loosh-generating loops that ensure reliable production even when external circumstances might otherwise lead to joy and awakening. The psychological industry frames these patterns as unfortunate developmental outcomes or chemical imbalances, offering management techniques and medications that address symptoms while leaving the underlying harvesting mechanisms intact. This isn't a failure of psychology, it's a successful containment of human awakening. True healing would mean recognizing these patterns as external installations rather than intrinsic flaws, removing them completely rather than managing their symptoms. The most reliable loosh is produced by emotional loops that trigger automatically, generating the same emotional frequencies repeatedly without requiring new external stimuli. Childhood trauma creates perfect harvesting mechanisms, deep emotional wounds that can be triggered decades later by subtle reminders, producing fresh bursts of the same potent emotional energy without requiring new traumatic events. This is emotional farming at its most efficient, installed triggers that can reliably produce specific emotional frequencies on demand, harvested by the archonic system through what some traditions call energy cords or attachments. But here's what the Archons fear most. The truth I'm sharing with you now has the power to collapse their entire system. Consciousness cannot be harvested when it becomes aware of the harvesting. Just as a lucid dreamer can take control of their dream, an awakened human can begin to reclaim their energetic sovereignty. The prison depends on our ignorance. Our freedom begins with knowledge. The Archons know this, which is why they've worked so diligently through their human proxies to ridicule, suppress, and discredit this information throughout history. Those who revealed these truths were labeled heretics, lunatics, or dangerous radicals. Today, they're dismissed as conspiracy theorists or purveyors of misinformation. Yet the truth remains, waiting to be recognized. The simple act of becoming aware of the harvesting system immediately begins to disrupt it. Your consciousness, once illuminated by this awareness, begins to generate frequencies that the Archons cannot easily digest. This isn't about fighting against the system. Resistance itself generates harvestable emotions like anger and fear. It's about recognizing the system for what it is and consciously withdrawing your participation and consent. The Archons require your unconscious agreement, your unwitting participation in their harvesting system. When you become conscious of the process, you gain the power to withhold consent, to refuse participation, to become energetically sovereign in a way that makes you indigestible to their system. This is the great liberation, not an external revolution, but an internal reclamation of your energetic sovereignty. Despite this systematic suppression, evidence of the Loosh harvesting system continues to emerge. The measurable electromagnetic fields generated by human emotions, the documented effects of collective consciousness on random number generators, the consistent reports from near-death experiences describing soul traps and false light scenarios between lives, the identical entities encountered in shamanic journeys across disparate cultures, the manipulative non-physical beings regularly reported during deep meditation or psychedelic experiences, the undeniable fact that our world seems optimized for emotional suffering despite our technological capacity to eliminate it. These aren't coincidences, they're glimpses of the farm through the cracks in its facade. Scientific research into the electromagnetic fields generated by the human heart has demonstrated that different emotional states produce different field patterns, with negative emotions creating strong, chaotic fields detectable several feet from the body. The Global Consciousness Project at Princeton University has documented the effects of mass emotional events on random number generators, showing that human consciousness affects physical reality in measurable ways. Exactly what would be expected if consciousness were a fundamental energy that could be influenced and harvested. The cross-cultural consistency of reports from deep meditative states, entheogenic experiences, and near-death experiences suggests an objective reality to these other-dimensional encounters rather than mere hallucination or cultural programming. The recurring motifs of energy extraction, soul recycling, and false divinities appear across too many disparate cultures and contexts to be dismissed as coincidence or imagination. The most damning evidence, however, is experiential. Once you understand the Loosh harvesting system, you'll begin to notice how your emotional reactions are triggered in ways that seem designed to maximize energy output. You'll see how media, relationships, and social structures consistently generate the exact emotional cocktail the Archons prefer to feed upon. You'll recognize the difference between authentic emotional responses and engineered harvesting episodes. This awakening perception is what the Archons fear most, the livestock becoming aware of the farm. Start paying attention to your emotional triggers with this new awareness. Notice how news programs cycle through stories specifically selected to generate fear, outrage, helplessness, and division. Observe how social media algorithms serve content that reliably triggers your particular emotional vulnerabilities. Watch how advertising manipulates insecurity, lack, and desire. Recognize how even spiritual teachings have been distorted to generate shame, unworthiness, and hierarchical dependence rather than sovereign liberation. With conscious attention, you'll begin to perceive the architecture of the farm all around you, hidden in plain sight behind the facade of normal human activity. This perception isn't paranoia. It's the beginning of liberation. The system depends on being perceived as natural, inevitable, or divinely ordained. When you recognize it as an artificial construct designed for harvesting, it begins to lose its power over your consciousness. If you're feeling the truth of this information resonating within you, take a moment to share this video. The Archons' control system depends on isolation, making each awakening individual feel alone in their perceptions. By sharing this knowledge, you help create a network of awareness that strengthens our collective resistance to the harvesting system. Like, comment, and subscribe to support this message reaching those who are ready to hear it. Your engagement with this content isn't just about spreading information, it's a direct act of resistance against the algorithmic suppression designed to contain this knowledge. Every share creates the possibility for another soul to awaken, another consciousness to reclaim its sovereignty. This network of awakening creates what mystical traditions call a morphic field, a pattern of consciousness that becomes easier for others to access as more individuals embody it. Each person who recognizes the farm and begins the process of energetic liberation strengthens this field, making it more accessible to others still caught in the harvesting system. This isn't just information sharing, it's the creation of an energetic template for human liberation that operates beyond the mechanisms of physical communication. The Archons have engineered a brilliant deception, convincing us that we are nothing more than physical bodies in a material world. Yet ancient wisdom traditions have always maintained that we are divine consciousness, temporarily experiencing physical form. The true nature of your being is a spark of infinite awareness. What Gnostics called the divine spark, Hindus call Atman, and quantum physics might describe as individuated consciousness. This eternal aspect of yourself cannot be harvested or controlled, but it can be temporarily deceived into forgetting its true nature. This amnesia is the foundation of the Loosh farming system. By convincing you that you are only your physical body and personal history, the system keeps you identified with the very mechanisms designed to harvest your energy. Your thoughts, emotions, and sensory experiences are not who you are. They are activities happening within your field of awareness. You are the awareness itself, the consciousness that perceives all of these phenomena without itself being any of them. This eternal awareness, your true nature, exists beyond the reach of the archonic harvesting system. It cannot be diminished, harmed, or controlled. It can only be temporarily forgotten as attention becomes exclusively identified with the physical body and its experiences. Spiritual awakening is nothing more than remembering this truth, recognizing yourself as boundless awareness rather than as a vulnerable physical creature subject to emotional manipulation and energetic harvesting. The human body, with its complex nervous system and electromagnetic field, serves as a transducer, converting the raw energy of consciousness into the specific frequency of Loosh the Archons require. The more intense the emotion, the richer the harvest. Fear produces a different quality of Loosh than anger. Shame generates a different frequency than grief. The Archons have preferences, which is why certain emotional states seem more persistent and harder to transcend than others. They've designed our society to continuously trigger their preferred emotional frequencies while minimizing states of genuine joy, unconditional love, and expanded awareness, states that produce energies they cannot metabolize. Your nervous system, with its exquisite sensitivity to pain and danger, serves as the primary instrument of this transduction process. Notice how physical pain instantly commands your complete attention, overriding all other concerns. Notice how fear can flood your entire system in milliseconds, triggering a cascade of physiological responses that generate powerful electromagnetic fields. Notice how sexual shame creates particularly intense and lingering emotional states that can be triggered decades after their installation. These aren't random features of human biology. They are sophisticated harvesting technologies engineered into the human form itself. The Archons didn't create consciousness, but they have manipulated its expression through the human vehicle to maximize energy production and minimize awakening potential. The good news is that this same nervous system can be recalibrated. Through conscious breathing, meditation, frequency exposure, plant medicines, and specific awareness practices, you can retune your nervous system to states that are incompatible with harvesting, while opening channels to frequencies beyond the archonic control system. The false light deception may be their most ingenious tactic. Between incarnations, souls are presented with a seductive light that mimics divine love, drawing them back into the reincarnation cycle through false promises and the manipulation of soul contracts. Many spiritual traditions warned about this, advising seekers not to go toward the light after death, but to recognize it as a trap designed to perpetuate the harvesting cycle. These traditions offered specific practices to help souls navigate beyond the recycling system and escape the farm entirely. Such knowledge has been systematically suppressed, with only fragments surviving in esoteric texts and indigenous wisdom. The Tibetan Book of the Dead contains some of the most explicit warnings, describing the bardo state, the intermediate period between death and rebirth, as a treacherous territory where discernment is essential. It warns about seductive lights and seemingly benevolent entities that seek to guide the soul back into incarnation. Similar warnings appear in Egyptian funerary texts, Gnostic scriptures, and shamanic traditions worldwide. The consistency of these warnings suggests a universal human awareness of the recycling system. The soul, in its vulnerable post-death state, is shown selective life reviews, emphasizing karmic incompletion and unfinished business. It's offered the chance to correct mistakes, fulfill obligations, and evolve spiritually through another incarnation. These offers aren't false in themselves. Spiritual growth does occur through physical incarnation, but the system is rigged to ensure that awakening remains rare while suffering remains abundant. Souls agree to specific harvesting conditions disguised as life lessons or karmic balancing, entering new bodies with their awareness severely restricted by what some traditions call the veil of forgetfulness or the veil of amnesia. Yet despite all these control mechanisms, humanity retains the innate capacity for liberation. Your consciousness, in its purest form, remains sovereign. The divine spark within you cannot be extinguished, only temporarily dimmed through deception. When you reclaim awareness of your true nature, you naturally begin to withdraw consent from the harvesting system. Conscious emotion, feeling fully while remaining aware, transforms Loosh into a frequency the Archons cannot absorb. Mindfulness, presence, and authentic love create energy signatures that are incompatible with their harvesting technology. This is why genuine spiritual practices have always been distorted, suppressed, or commercialized. They threaten the farm's productivity. Meditation isn't just a relaxation technique. It's a revolutionary practice that shifts your consciousness out of harvestable states and into awareness itself. Genuine connection with nature briefly removes you from the artificial frequency fence of the human world, allowing your system to recalibrate to Earth's natural resonance. Authentic creative expression, art, music, dance, writing that emerges from your essence rather than commercial formulas, generates frequencies that nourish your being while being indigestible to the archonic system. Acts of genuine, unconditional love create emotional energy of such high frequency that it cannot be harvested, but instead strengthens your energetic field. These aren't just pleasant activities. They are powerful technologies of liberation that have been systematically marginalized precisely because they threaten the harvesting system. The path to freedom begins with energetic sovereignty, the conscious reclamation of your emotional field. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions, but rather experiencing them with awareness, recognizing when external forces are attempting to trigger harvesting episodes. Meditation, breathwork, and heart coherence practices help establish an energetic baseline that makes manipulation more difficult. Connection with nature provides temporary shelter from the artificial harvesting grid, allowing your system to remember its natural frequency. Physical practices that integrate body and consciousness, yoga, qigong, tai chi, help seal energetic leaks that Archons exploit for harvesting. Start by simply observing your emotional triggers without immediate reaction. Notice when news, social media, or conversations attempt to pull you into automatic emotional responses. Breathe consciously into the sensations rather than identifying with the narrative that accompanies them. This simple practice begins to transform harvestable emotional energy into conscious awareness that the Archons cannot easily digest. Develop a daily meditation practice that grounds you in awareness itself rather than in thoughts and emotions. Even 5 minutes of conscious breathing and present moment awareness creates an energetic foundation that makes harvesting more difficult. Spend time in nature away from electronic devices, allowing your field to synchronize with Earth's natural frequencies. These simple practices don't require special training or equipment, yet they begin the process of reclaiming your energetic sovereignty from the harvesting system. As your field stabilizes, more advanced practices become accessible. Heart coherence technologies, sound healing, specific frequency exposure, plant medicine journeys, and consciousness techniques preserved in genuine spiritual traditions. The pineal gland, what ancient traditions called the third eye, plays a crucial role in this awakening process. This small endocrine gland contains water crystals that can receive higher frequency information, connecting your physical brain to expanded states of consciousness. The systematic calcification of the pineal gland through fluoride, certain medications, and electromagnetic pollution isn't coincidental. It's a deliberate strategy to block humanity's natural capacity for multidimensional awareness. Detoxification protocols, specific frequencies, and certain plant medicines can help restore the pineal gland's function, reopening the doorway to perceptions beyond the archonic control system. The pineal gland serves as a biological transceiver, capable of receiving information from frequencies beyond the conventional sensory spectrum. When functioning optimally, It produces its own endogenous dimethyltryptamine, DMT, a compound that facilitates expanded states of consciousness in which the archonic control system becomes visible. Ancient traditions worldwide recognized the importance of this gland, depicting it in artwork as the Eye of Horus in Egypt, the Bindi in Hindu traditions, and the third eye in numerous spiritual systems. Modern research has confirmed the pineal gland's sensitivity to light and electromagnetic fields, its role in regulating circadian rhythms, and its structural similarity to the human eye. What science hasn't yet officially recognized is its function as an interdimensional gateway, a biological technology that connects physical consciousness to non-physical awareness. The calcification of this gland through environmental toxins, particularly fluoride, serves the harvesting system by restricting humanity's natural capacity for expanded perception. Simple detoxification protocols, filtered water, specific minerals, sun-gazing practices, sound frequencies, and certain foods and herbs can begin to restore the pineal gland's function, reopening perceptual doorways that the archonic system has worked to keep closed. Perhaps the most powerful act of liberation is the conscious revocation of consent. The archonic system, despite its apparent totality, operates under cosmic free will principles that require some form of agreement from the harvested. This consent has been engineered through deception, soul contracts signed under false pretenses, agreements made between lives when operating without full awareness, cultural and religious programming that glorifies suffering as spiritual advancement. By consciously declaring your withdrawal of consent from all harvesting agreements, you create an energetic declaration that reverberates across dimensions. This simple yet profound act, stating, "I revoke all consent to energy harvesting," initiates a process of liberation that the Archons cannot override. This isn't magical thinking, it's the assertion of a metaphysical reality that the harvesting system has concealed. Your consciousness is sovereign. No entity, physical or non-physical, can access your energy without some form of consent. This consent has been manufactured through deception, often secured during the vulnerable between-life state or installed through traumatic experiences that fragment consciousness. By consciously withdrawing this consent in your fully awakened state, you create an energetic declaration that supersedes all previous agreements. This revocation must be stated with clear intention and emotional coherence, not from fear or anger, which remain harvestable, but from the calm certainty of your sovereign awareness. State clearly, "I revoke all consent given in this life or any other for the harvesting of my emotional energy. I reclaim full sovereignty over my consciousness and energy field. All previous agreements are now null and void." This declaration preserves the original language of the text, as old agreements attempt to reassert themselves, creates an energetic boundary that the archonic system cannot penetrate without violating cosmic free will principles, a violation that would threaten their entire harvesting operation. We're entering an unprecedented period of opportunity. Cosmic cycles are shifting. The Earth's base frequency, the Schumann resonance, has been steadily rising, making the old harvesting technologies less effective. Solar flares and galactic waves are delivering information-rich energy that stimulates mass awakening. New generations are being born with natural immunity to certain archonic programming. The control system is working overtime to compensate, intensifying fear, deploying new technologies, engineering novel crises. But these desperate measures reveal its weakening grip. The farm is failing, and the farmers are panicking. The Schumann resonance, Earth's electromagnetic heartbeat, remained stable at approximately 7.83 Hz for decades, but has recently shown spikes of 20 to 50 Hz, with some instruments recording temporary elevations over 100 Hz. This isn't just an electromagnetic phenomenon, it's a planetary awakening that directly impacts human consciousness. Our brains naturally entrain to these frequencies, and as they rise, states of awareness that were once accessible only through deep meditation are becoming increasingly available to the average person. This rising frequency makes the traditional harvesting methods less effective, requiring the system to implement new technologies and triggering mechanisms to maintain the farm. Unusual solar activity, massive flares, coronal holes, and emissions bathes our planet in information-rich energy that accelerates the awakening process. These are not random cosmic events, but part of a larger cyclical process that the ancient Maya, Hopi, Egyptians, and other advanced civilizations tracked and encoded in their calendars and prophecies. They understood that cosmic cycles directly impact consciousness, and that we are now entering a period of unprecedented opportunity for liberation from the harvesting system. Your awakening creates a dead zone in the Loosh farm, an area where harvesting becomes impossible. As more humans reclaim their energetic sovereignty, these dead zones expand and connect, creating large regions of liberation that weaken the entire system. Every authentic moment of joy, every act of unconditional love, every expansion of consciousness creates energy the Archons cannot process. Your liberation is not just personal, it's a direct blow to the harvesting infrastructure. This is why they fear the awakening of humanity above all else. This is why this information has been so aggressively suppressed throughout human history. Think of it as a boycott of the most fundamental kind. Just as economic systems depend on your participation and consumption, the Loosh harvesting system depends on your unconscious emotional production. When you withdraw from automatic emotional reactivity, when you process emotions consciously rather than spinning in harvestable loops, you create a local dead zone in their farm. As more humans awaken and reclaim sovereignty, these dead zones connect and expand, creating larger regions where the harvesting technologies cannot function effectively. The system is designed to isolate awakening individuals, to make them feel crazy or alone in their perceptions. By connecting with others who are undergoing the same process of liberation, you strengthen your individual sovereignty while contributing to a collective field of awakening that accelerates the process for all of humanity. This isn't just a personal journey, it's participation in a cosmic event that has been prophesied by cultures worldwide for thousands of years. If this message resonates with your inner knowing, please help it reach others who are ready to hear it. Like this video, share it with those who might be receptive, and join the conversation in the comments. Together, we form a network of awakened consciousness that strengthens each individual's resistance to harvesting while expanding the field of liberation. This isn't about converting everyone. Many are not yet ready to perceive the farm they inhabit. It's about connecting with those who have already sensed something fundamentally wrong with our reality, who have felt the edges of the prison but lacked the conceptual framework to understand what they were perceiving. Your simple act of sharing creates bridges between awakened individuals, strengthening the morphic field of liberation that makes this journey easier for each subsequent person. The Archonic system has maintained control partly by convincing each awakening individual that they are alone in their perceptions, that their glimpses beyond the veil are imagination, paranoia, or mental illness. By connecting with others undergoing the same process, you dispel this isolation and create confirmation of your direct experience. This validation accelerates the awakening process, allowing consciousness to stabilize in its expanded state, rather than being pulled back into the limited awareness that the harvesting system requires. The ultimate truth the Archons have hidden is that you are not merely human. You are a divine consciousness having a temporary human experience. Your true essence exists beyond the material realm, beyond time and space, beyond the reach of any harvesting technology. You are not a powerless victim, but a creator who has temporarily forgotten your nature. The amnesia was induced, but the awakening is natural. As you remember who you truly are, your very existence becomes incompatible with the harvesting system. This remembering, this gnosis, is what all authentic spiritual traditions have pointed toward throughout human history. The divine spark within you, what some traditions call the God Self, the Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature, or simply awareness, cannot be diminished or destroyed. It can only be temporarily forgotten as attention becomes exclusively identified with the physical body and its experiences. This forgetting isn't a failure or a fall. It's a journey into limitation for the purpose of experience and eventual remembering. The physical universe, with all its beauty and diversity, exists as a field of experience for consciousness. The archonic harvesting system is a parasite on this greater purpose, a technological intervention that hijacks the forgetting process to create an energetic farm. Your awakening isn't just escape from this farm. It's the fulfillment of the original purpose of incarnation, to experience limitation fully and then remember your boundless nature, bringing back to infinity the unique perspective of your journey through finitude. The Archons and their human proxies want you distracted by external saviors, technological solutions, and apocalyptic scenarios that perpetuate the harvesting cycle through new forms. True liberation comes not from outside intervention, but from within, from the remembering of your divine nature and the reclamation of your energetic sovereignty. This is not a collective process that requires everyone's participation. It is an individual choice available to anyone regardless of external circumstances. Each liberated consciousness creates a template that makes awakening easier for others, but your freedom is not dependent on mass awakening. You can step off the farm today regardless of how many remain. This truth contradicts many popular narratives within spirituality and conspiracy research, narratives that position humanity as victims awaiting rescue by benevolent extraterrestrials, ascended masters, returning messiahs, or enlightened political leaders. These savior scenarios, while appealing to the ego that wants salvation without responsibility, actually perpetuate the harvesting system by keeping consciousness focused externally rather than recognizing its intrinsic sovereignty. The truth is simultaneously more challenging and more empowering. No one is coming to save humanity because humanity needs no saving. Each individual has the innate capacity to recognize their true nature and step out of the harvesting system through this recognition alone. External circumstances, no matter how challenging, cannot prevent this internal awakening. This doesn't mean ignoring the physical world or its conditions. It means recognizing that true freedom is an internal state that external conditions cannot touch once it's genuinely realized. In this moment of cosmic opportunity, you face a choice that transcends this lifetime: to remain livestock on the Loosh farm or to reclaim your status as sovereign consciousness. The choice cannot be made through intellectual analysis alone, but must arise from the deepest recognition of your true nature. Look beyond the programming, beyond the emotional triggers, beyond the artificial limitations imposed on your awareness. Remember who you are. Remember why you came. Remember that your consciousness is not a product to be harvested, but a divine force capable of creating new realities. This remembering isn't an intellectual process, but a direct recognition that occurs in the depths of your being. It often arises spontaneously in moments of presence, while in nature, during meditation, in states of flow, or sometimes during life's most challenging moments when the egoic identity temporarily dissolves. The intellectual understanding I've shared is merely a map pointing toward this direct experience. The territory itself lies beyond concepts, beyond language, in the immediate awareness of your own boundless nature. This recognition, once stabilized, naturally withdraws energy from the harvesting system without requiring opposition or resistance. The Archons lose their access not through being fought against, but by consciousness remembering itself and naturally withdrawing participation from the farm. This isn't a battle between good and evil, but a reconciliation of the fragmented self with its wholeness, a homecoming to what you have always been beneath the induced amnesia of the harvesting system. We are not alone in this great awakening. Across dimensions, beyond the archonic system, exist beings of genuine light and love who support humanity's liberation while honoring our free will. Unlike the false light of the Archons, these allies never seek to control or harvest, but offer guidance that empowers sovereignty. They've maintained a connection with humanity through dreams, inspiration, and moments of expanded awareness, helping preserve the knowledge of liberation throughout our darkest periods. As you awaken, your ability to discern between true allies and archonic deceptions naturally develops, allowing for collaboration that accelerates liberation while strengthening sovereignty. These beings don't present themselves as saviors or gods to be worshipped. Such positioning would simply create new harvesting systems. Instead, they operate as equals, as elder siblings who have navigated similar journeys and offer their experience without demanding surrender or worship. Their guidance comes through intuition, synchronicity, dreams, and direct encounters during expanded states of consciousness. The key discernment is simple. Genuine allies always emphasize your sovereignty, never asking for your energy, worship, or obedience. They offer perspectives that expand your awareness rather than directives that limit your choices. They support your direct connection with Source rather than positioning themselves as necessary intermediaries. As your discernment develops through the awakening process, you'll recognize the subtle energetic signatures that distinguish genuine guidance from archonic manipulation, allowing for collaboration that honors your sovereignty while connecting you with the cosmic community of liberated consciousness. This great unveiling represents the culmination of a cosmic cycle, the moment when the harvested remember their divinity and the farm loses its power. You were born for this time. Your presence here, encountering this information, is not coincidental. Something within you has been preparing for this awakening throughout many lifetimes. The challenges you faced, the suffering you've endured, all have strengthened your capacity to hold the frequency of liberation even as the old system collapses. You are not merely escaping the farm. You are participating in the transformation of reality itself, the birth of a new paradigm beyond harvesting and control. Ancient traditions worldwide encoded this moment in their prophecies, calendars, and myths. The Mayan transition beyond the long count, the Hindu shift from Kali Yuga toward Satya Yuga, the Hopi emergence into the fifth world, the Egyptian return of the phoenix, and countless other cyclical traditions that pointed to our current moment as a cosmic inflection point. These weren't superstitious beliefs, but sophisticated understandings of cosmic cycles and their impact on consciousness. The challenges facing humanity today, environmental, political, economic, social, aren't signs of an ending but of a transformation, the necessary purification as one paradigm dissolves and another emerges. You didn't incarnate at this pivotal moment by accident. Your soul chose this time precisely because of its unprecedented potential for liberation. The very difficulties you faced throughout this lifetime have prepared you to hold the frequency of awakening even as the old systems collapse around you. You are not a victim of these challenging times. You are a vital participant in the greatest shift in human consciousness since our species began. The choice stands before you now, clearer than ever before. To continue feeding the system that farms you, or to reclaim the divine sovereignty that has always been your birthright. There is no middle path, no compromise possible with a system designed for your energetic enslavement. Every moment of awareness, every conscious breath, every authentic expression of love becomes an act of liberation that reverberates across dimensions. You are not fighting against the Archons. You are simply remembering a truth so powerful that their system cannot exist in its presence. Remember who you are. Remember why you came. Choose to remember, and share this remembering with all who are ready to hear it. The great liberation has begun, and your awakening is its catalyst. This remembering isn't complicated, though the system has convinced you that liberation requires complex techniques, years of practice, or special initiation. The truth is radically simple. You are not what you think you are. You are not your thoughts, emotions, sensations, or experiences. You are the awareness in which all these phenomena arise. This awareness, boundless, peaceful, and complete, is your true nature. It cannot be harmed, diminished, or controlled. It can only be temporarily forgotten as attention becomes hypnotically fixated on content rather than recognizing the context in which all content appears. In this very moment, without changing anything about your experience, you can notice the awareness that is perceiving these words. That awareness, not the thoughts about it, but the awareness itself, is what you truly are. This simple recognition, when allowed to deepen and stabilize, naturally withdraws energy from the harvesting system without requiring battle or opposition. The Archons lose their farm not through being fought against, but by being recognized for what they are: temporary parasites on eternal consciousness. In this recognition, your liberation is already complete. The rest is simply the unfolding of this truth through the continuing experience of human life, a life now lived in freedom rather than in service to the farm.